There we go.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us here at the Priestess View. I'm Goddess Rhonda, and of course we have with us our beautiful Goddess Star.
Hi, everyone. Good to have everyone here tonight, and thank you, beautiful Goddess Rhonda.
Thank you. And we also have the beautiful Goddess Lilith Dorsey, who is here to enlighten us with all of her awesome wisdom that she has collected throughout the years. But you're going to hear more about her in just a few minutes. Because as always, oh, Goddess Lilith, please say hello.
Hello, everybody.
There you are. You're
Look at that big, beautiful smile, right?
Beautiful smile. As always, before we begin, we like to cast a circle of protection around us. All hail, our lords and ladies of the East, our brothers and sisters, our brother and patron, the sacred element of air, namaste. Divine honor, love, joy, peace, and respect to thee. We charge thee, please cause a barrier of protection through all of our walls that face your direction, from corner to corner and end to end. Let peace and protection reign herein. Thank you, and so it is.
So would it be.
Thank you.
All hail our lords and ladies of the South, my brother and sisters, my brother and patron, the sacred element of fire. Namaste. Divine honor, love, joy, peace, and respect to thee. I charge you, please cause a barrier of protection through all of your walls that face your direction, from corner to corner and end to end. Let peace and protection reign herein. Thank you, and so it is. So mote it be.
So it is. So mote it be. Thank you. All hail, our lords and ladies of the West, our brothers and sisters, our sister and patron, the sacred element of water. Namaste. Divine honor, love, joy, peace, and respect to thee, my lords and ladies. I charge thee, please cause a barrier of protection through all of our walls that face your direction, from corner to corner and end to end. Let peace and protection reign herein. Thank you, and so it is.
So let it be. All hail our lords and ladies of the North, my brother and sisters, my sister and patron, the sacred element of earth. Namaste. Divine honor, love, joy, peace, and respect to thee. I charge thee, please cause a barrier of protection through all of our walls that face your direction, from corner to corner and end to end. Let peace and protection reign herein. Thank you, and so it is. So mote it be.
Yes. Thank you.
And we now bring down the divine white light from the sacred source of all well-being and fill our spaces with peace and protection always. So it is, and thank you.
So mote it be.
Thank you.
So welcome back. Again, I'm Goddess Rhonda, and we have our gorgeous co-host, Goddess Star.
Hi again, everyone.
And the sensationally gorgeous Voodoo Priestess Lilith Dorsey.
Hi, everybody.
We are so glad that you're with us, Goddess Lilith.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so overjoyed to be here. This is wonderful.
Thank you
so much.
And I noticed that in your videos that I watched of you, which, by the way, I really enjoy your videos, and we'll talk more about those later, but I just wanted you to know that I enjoy watching them. I saw that you honor Papa Legba first in all of your ceremonies, and I know this is not a ceremony, but I think it's only fitting to honor him first now. So would you please tell us about Papa Legba and how he assist us?
Sure. Papa Legba is the guardian of the crossroads, and excuse me, every tradition does him slightly differently. In New Orleans, they call him Papa Legba or Papa Labat, which was named after Jean-Baptiste Labat, who actually enacted the voodoo codes, which I think it's so ironic that they would pray to this Labat so that they could go on with their ceremonies and actually have things done. So it sort of works in that double kind of way.
Right.
Basically, he's responsible for opening all paths, all roads, all doors. He's a wise father that always has the right answers, you know, like even for those of us who didn't have the nicest paternal influences, Papa Legba is that nice, wonderful paternal influence that allows us to sort of choose our destiny and help us along the way.
Awesome.
That's really awesome. And I also noticed you have a beautiful flag of the goddess Oshun. Please tell us a little bit about her.
Well, my New Orleans voodoo house does a lot of things with Oshun because we had a lot of Santeria influences early in the beginning when we were starting. And my own personal voodoo house does a lot of Oshun things because I'm also initiated in La Regla Lukumi, which most people know as Santeria, and I'm a child of Oshun. So we've got a lot of Oshun influences going on here. So we have an Oshun flag made out of the Veve for Oshun to sort of represent her love and her divine wisdom in our lives.
That's beautiful.
That is beautiful. And when I was watching that video, when it started talking about how you have on the flag, that's not my phone right now, how you have on the flag the peacock feather. And I just have a love for all things peacock. I have my peacock necklace on. I couldn't wait to show you this, actually.
I'm so excited.
I got a peacock
Oh my goodness.
from India.
That is fabulous.
My peacock vase.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Girl, and I had a session with
Oh my God.
Chief Yuya. Do you know who he is?
No.
He's out of Brooklyn also. And I can't think of what his name, Sadulu House is the name of his house.
Oh, okay.
And I had a session with him, and he said, without knowing any of my peacock stuff, he associated me and my energy with Oshun. So in honor of her, I have all my peacock and everything regalia on because I just love her so much too.
She's definitely in charge of the peacock. That's her, beautiful, divine Ashe in all of its glory. And don't mess with a peacock either,
Yeah.
Anybody who's ever seen them knows they can be a little bit feisty.
Good for them. Good for them.
Yeah, good for them, because everybody's trying to steal their feathers. I'd be feisty too.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
If someone was trying to do that to me. So, Goddess Lilith, tell us about your background. You come from such a diverse spiritual background. So let everybody know about it.
Well, I think I started like a lot of people did. I started, reading tarot cards and talking to spirits when I was young, and the things that I got from the people that were around me were always just small snippets here and there and stuff like that. And as I got older and I, went to school, first I went for film, you were talking about my films, and then I went for anthropology because I really wanted to know more about, who we were as divine beings and what we worshipped, and more discovering that. I was just so discouraged. I would like to say I think things are better now with the educational system, but not really, that I didn't really know what it was to be a proud Black woman. And when my daughters were little, I didn't know how to show them that in a way that was really divine and also supported by, these sources that everybody was holding up as so spectacular and fantastic. And, I never heard about the Queen of Sheba and stuff like that, so I really wanted to teach them and have them have something that they could really be proud of that was, based in the truth that we were not taught, So I started to challenge all my teachers, and, very quickly when I started to talk to people that were practicing, I realized, oh, this is what I should have been practicing all along.
Right.
So it was like family, it was like home, and there, really wasn't any choice.
Wow, that's really great. Because I think it's very relatable, because you want to find something that relates to you, for your kids to look up to, because it's very hard here. It's very hard for that.
Absolutely.
And again, I do notice that you do have that very multifaceted background. So I wanted to kind of, well, I guess you kind of answered a little bit of it, but what inspired you to, other than what you mentioned earlier, what inspired you to focus more on the voodoo part of it?
I would really think it was my godmothers. I would think it was, I have 3 very strong, very powerful godmothers, one in New Orleans voodoo, who's Priestess Miriam from the Voodoo Spiritual Temple, and in La Regla Lukumi or Santeria, it's, we just call her Yeye Oshun. But, again, we're totally an Oshun house, and she really, inspired me just as a person and also as a spiritual leader and as a woman, and my Haitian Voodoo priestess is Bonnie Devlin, who a lot of people know as she's a master drummer. She drummed with Olatunji. I was the first person she ever initiated with, and she's just one of the most beautiful spiritual spirits that I've ever met. So again, it felt
Wow.
like home. It felt like family, and I really had people that I could trust. And unlike a lot of people, I'm still with all my godmothers, which is ironic. But
Yeah.
I can't imagine
That, you
going
know what?
anywhere else.
Yeah, and that is truly amazing because if you mentioned it, Haitian, Santeria, and Voodoo Priestess, all of them, they're all coming from such different, diverse backgrounds, but yet it all kind of came together for you, and then here it go. It formed that person that you are. That's amazingly beautiful. Thank you.
Oh,
It really
thank you.
is. Your body of work is beautiful, and one of the things I really like, because I'd never heard of voodoo flags before, so I got a real education watching your videos. So can you please tell us what voodoo flags are, how they're used, what they're made out of? Can I make one myself, or how does that work?
Okay. Well, a lot of houses have voodoo flags. They originated in Haiti. They used to call them the poor man's stained glass window, which I think is just beautiful because stained glass windows ain't cheap. So
That's right. That's
you get a
right.
bag of sequins for not that much, and some beads. But yeah, you can make them. Like I said, they've been making them for hundreds of years in Haiti, and there really is a big art trade now and a market for them. They go for hundreds or thousands of dollars. There's
Wow.
been a couple of high
Wow.
quality museum
Wow.
shows. Yeah. And I think
Wow.
again, it was really sort of a folk art way for people to, make a living, now if they're getting thousands of dollars for them. But yes, you can make them. It's very, very intense. When we were making them for my house down in New Orleans, the person who was making them was telling me about her experiences and how it was very, kind of in a way like a Native American sand mandala or something that was really, your energy gets very attached into the flag, and it's very, I don't want to say draining, but intense, and it's a lot of energy and work has to go into it. So when we were doing ours in my house, we did them as quickly as we possibly could because we just wanted to get through it. We started to get sick, like somebody would get the sniffles and someone else would jump in. So we didn't do them in the traditional way. Traditionally, what it is it's a prayer when the needle goes through the fabric, a prayer when it goes through the sequin, another prayer when it goes through the bead, a prayer when it goes back down through the sequin again, and a prayer when it gets tied off through the fabric finally at the
Wow.
end. So
Wow.
it's a lot of
Of
intense
work.
work.
A lot of
Yeah.
Yeah,
work.
that's a lot of energy work. It is.
Yeah, and normally they're, 3 feet by 3 feet. They're pretty big, so we're talking about a large space that you're working with. So there's a lot of energy work going into it. So we did ours. And the ones, for us, they're really special. I think the memorial flags that we did, I featured my goddaughter, her father's, with the cross shotguns in the film. And, it was really special for her to be able to do that and to stay connected to him through this flag. And we brought it out for Thanksgiving, and everybody got to see it, her brother and everything. It was wonderful.
Oh,
That's a good memorial for someone. That's beautiful.
that's
And
really beautiful.
yeah, yeah. Can these flags be purchased, or is it better to make one for yourself?
If you're buying it, it's the same thing like buying a spell. That I think would be the difference. You can go purchase a magic spell, and that has its own validity. But if you make it yourself, that's a whole another kind of level of intensity that's going into it.
It kind of reminds you of the quilts and stuff that people make. That's really awesome.
I would rather make one myself. Does the
Me too.
fabric matter?
Does it what?
Yeah, I actually would. I actually would.
Does the fabric matter? Does it matter what kind of fabric I use?
We usually use natural fabrics just because we feel like that's closer to the earth and closer to the spirit. And then we choose things they like. I like your quilt analogy because we did really put things that belong to the people, a piece of their clothing or something else that represented them, or, to people, we have pieces of their writing up there, some of their poetry. So I think whatever you want to do that's really personal.
I think that's beautiful. I'd like to make one for my late brother, so I would have to fill his stuff with like those Star Wars. He was a grown man when he died. Don't get me wrong. But I would have to put like comic book pictures and
that's great.
Star Wars and things. But I would love to make one to honor him and send it to his children.
Oh, that sounds really
Oh,
nice.
that's beautiful.
I think I'm going to
That's really
probably
beautiful.
go ahead and do that. You already answered I was going to ask you about, let me share, I want to share the link for
Yeah.
a blog
To the
that
voodoo flags, yeah.
I'm talking about so that they can go and look at them. Bear with me for just 1 second while I put that link up.
All
Paste.
right.
Okay, well, I'm telling you, I got like a whole wealth of knowledge watching your videos, looking at your books. It's really wonderful what you've done.
Yeah, yeah. And
Oh,
it takes a
thank
lot
you.
of time and effort too.
Yes, it
It
does.
does.
It takes a lot of time and effort to do that. So I know what that's like. And looking at, so I'm just going to move on into the next question, which is looking at your blog on pagan recipes for Thanksgiving. And I love that you preface the recipes by saying every day is Thanksgiving for pagans, a beautiful holiday and celebration of the earth and all the bounty it gives us, which is so true.
It's
Every day
true,
is a
yeah.
harvest for us.
Yeah.
And I was
Yeah.
looking, these recipes will be great for Yule. Now, I sort of came in a little bit late with your conversation. I understand you have a new book coming out on sex magic and things like that. And I
Yes.
associate very heavily with that. So, of course, the first question I'm going to ask is about the holiday love nuts because they just sounded delicious. And I think I need to make them. So, can you please
Yes.
tell us about the holiday love nuts and how to make them and what they're used for?
Okay, well, there's a story that's behind the love nuts, which is even better. That my grandmother used to make this Chex Mix that was like legendary. She would make it every year for Christmas. You know how it is. Yeah, we'd have to give it to all the neighbors. It was crazy. So I decided, well, maybe I'll jazz it up with some kind of spice nuts that have all these herbs and stuff like that for sexuality and passion. And I'll put that in the Chex Mix. And we were calling that Sex Mix. But that stuff was so intense. I don't make Sex Mix anymore, but maybe someday in the future. So the love nuts would go in that. Basically, you can use any kind of nut that you want. I like to use cashews and almonds. You could definitely use peanuts if you did peanuts or something like that. And then you just melt together some butter and some honey, and you put the spices that you want in there. Normally I just made a batch this weekend. I did cinnamon and a little teeny bit of cloves and nutmeg, traditional Oshun things for love, all those good pumpkin pie spices that go in there. And then I do smoky paprika, onion, garlic, parsley, basil, to heal whatever might be wrong in your love life, things like that. Salt, pepper, whatever, go to town.
It
Sounds wonderful.
It does. They sound so good, and I love nuts. I'm going to post that link in the chat room. Go ahead, Goddess Star. You can ask your question while I post this link.
Okay. And you just mentioned such a great recipe that you just sprinted out there for us, which is really great. Like people can play it back and hear all that nice things that you put into that sex love nut. The name just kind of takes your mind other places, but I'm not gonna go there.
We didn't even talk about the blue balls yet. We still have to talk about the
right?
blue balls, but we're going to get to that one.
But anyways, women, we think like that.
What did I say? We're grown. We can say what we want.
You've got some great recipes. I'm gonna try not to laugh here. You've got some great recipes on your blog, which is kind of segues greatly into talking about your book, the African-American Ritual Cookbook. So I'd love to have you tell us a little bit about the ritual food and some of their importance, if you can pass some of that on to people here.
Yeah, well, I love cooking. I always loved cooking. I sent my daughter to Ivy League restaurant school, so, I know a lot about cooking. And for me, it's one of the simplest but most beautiful things that we can do for the people that we love. We can make them something to eat. It doesn't even matter if they're not pagan. We can still make them something nice that will, just help them feel better, So, but the African-American Ritual Cookbook, there's recipes in there for different Loa from Haiti, for Orisha from, Lukumi, Santeria. There's, special treats from my ancestors in there. So there's a little bit of everything that's in there. And, stuff for money, stuff for love, stuff for healing, you know.
Awesome.
I was going to call it 300 things to do with sweet potatoes because there's so many African-American recipes that have to do with sweet potatoes.
I love sweet potatoes. I'd buy that book.
Me too. Like, oh, I just love sweet potatoes. They're great.
So you actually have recipes, food recipes, to bring prosperity and things like that in there?
Yeah.
Can you give us an idea, like if someone wanted, because, you know, everybody's shopping right now, everybody's broke. So if someone wanted to eat their way to prosperity, what kind of foods could they eat?
Well, let's see. I'm thinking we were talking about the goddess Oshun, and related to prosperity, Oshun, she has to do with money and gold and things like that. Sometimes people do spells for her so they don't have to deal with too much, you know, credit card debt and interest and things like that. So there's a recipe in the cookbook for Oshun orange cake, which is just amazing. It's got like sour cream, and then you do a glaze with like orange juice and sugar over it while it's still hot. It's fantastic. It's one of my favorite recipes. Definitely.
I'm like drooling over here. That's just so.
You're actually making me want to go out and buy your book because
I have it here now on my list tomorrow.
Yeah, I know. I'm putting that on my list, and I gotta tell you, I don't like to cook. I hate cooking. You know, I only do because I need to eat. That's about it. But you know, put me in the kitchen with my herbs and ideas for anything ritualistic and spell-wise, and I'm ready to go try it. So
that's different when it's for ritual.
I'm definitely getting that book. Yes.
Forever. I come from a very old-fashioned background, so I've been cooking since I was 4. So I love to cook. So I am definitely getting your book, and I will probably start off with Oshun orange cake and the love nuts, and I think I'll be good to go. If I have things.
Bad. You're so bad.
Hey, that's all right.
Keep going back to that. What Haitian love nuts?
The love nuts. I
love nuts. Yeah.
You've got her on that one. And I'm wondering, are any of the recipes designed specifically for any type of deities other than, I know you do definitely for Oshun. Are there any other deities that you design some of them for?
Yeah, there's a Papa Legba Ritual New Orleans Voodoo coffee in there. That's, you know, Creole coffee with chicory and whipped cream. There's a couple of Marie Laveau recipes in there. There's definitely a lot of that going on. And then there's some, you know, more like traditional recipes for Ogun and some of the other Orisha and Loa.
Wow, that's wonderful.
Yeah, I'm looking.
It sounds so. I can't wait to go out and buy a book on Amazon. I'm on Amazon. Well, I'm not going to say the words, but I'm really fan of Amazon because it's so quick and easy to get what you need, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And I just wanted to take just 1 second to tell our viewers, I put the link in the chat room.
Okay.
And for those who are coming later to the show, I usually leave the chat room up for a week so you can go back and look at these links. But I just want to tell you, just to get your juices flowing, some of the recipes just on the blog that are going to make you buy the book. When we talked about that, I know they're like, do not say the holiday love nuts again. I'm saying it again.
Yes, love nuts.
My goodness. I told you she's hooked on it, Lilith.
We have butternut squash soup, which just sounds delicious.
Oh, yeah.
Chipotle deviled eggs.
Oh, those
Maman
Look at her. She, as you say the words to each recipe, she's like, oh, yeah.
All right, I have to stop at this one because you have the WTF is wassail. Am I saying it correctly?
Yes.
So, oh my goodness.
So WTF is wassail.
I'm drinking it right now, actually. I'm drinking it right now. It's apple cider with, again, all those great, you know, nutmeg, cinnamon, cloves, all those fantastic spices. I also do a little bit of orange juice in there, and then, you know, you just heat it up. And I mean, you could put liquor in it if you were a drinker, but I don't have any for the show. But
it's okay. That's all right.
That's all right.
Yeah,
we have spicy sweet potato salad, Bright Blessings corn chowder. I love corn chowder. Now, I don't know if I'm saying this right. Is it corn mock shoe?
Mock shoe, yeah.
That sounds really delicious. And, of course, we have the Marie Laveau bourbon bread pudding.
Yes.
Oh, my goodness.
I'm so hungry right now. I'm gonna have to leave the show and let you guys just handle it. So I
all these things, right?
can make some of these things because they're just so delicious.
We have to make Google the type of place where we can just reach out and say, "Hi, Lilith, just hand me some of that wassail over here."
I know.
All pass it around.
Here, it's really good. Have some.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this book.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's move on to your next book, Voodoo and Afro-Caribbean Paganism. And in that book, you discuss various spiritualities, which are all related, but let's just take them one by one. We're going to start off with the Yoruban connection.
Wow.
So can you tell us about that?
Well, that's the original traditions for a lot of what ended up going on in Lukumi and things like that down in Cuba and Puerto Rico. And basically, it's more, I think, more generalized pagans in this country would recognize it more because it's more very nature-centered. A lot of the altars are just like we were speaking before about Papa Legba. They have a deity called Eshu, is also the deity of the crossroads. And his sacred place is anywhere that they have these huge laterite cones, which are like these big stone things like you would find in a cave, except they're growing from the bottom up, basically. So anywhere you find these sacred things at a crossroads, that's a holy place for Eshu, and that's where somebody would leave offerings and go to sort of speak to Eshu and things like that, you know. So it's much, I don't want to say simpler, but it's much more nature-centered, whereas in this country or in Cuba or Puerto Rico or New Orleans, if you see an altar, it's going to be the huge room-size kind of altar, and there's going to be hundreds of things in there. Right. You know, it's going to be, you know, a different kind of elaborate sacredness.
Right. I've noticed that. And if you can give us a little bit about the Haitian voodoo part of it, VODOU, which I kind of see the differences a bit.
Yeah, I mean, Vodou is very, it's interesting because even though there was Haitian independence in the late, 1780s, it really was a culture that was oppressed in a lot of ways, but also isolated. So you've got different deities. You've got a heavy reliance on deities like Ogun, who I mentioned before, who's a warrior deity who, when you look at the Haitian Revolution, Toussaint Louverture and Henry Christophe, there were all these rumors about that they were actually devotees of Ogun, and they had prayed to Ogun in order to help them be successful. So I think, in a way, that he became, more prominent. So almost every house down there would have an altar for Ogun and a lot of rites that took place for Ogun and things like that. You don't get deities like Oshun for love. You get deities like Erzuli. There's a very, but I want to say it takes on the character of the area, obviously. So you get these huge rituals at Sadao, which is the sacred waterfalls where people go and do baths for Erzuli to sort of cleanse themselves with the blessings of love and joy for the coming year. So that's different and unique to the area.
Right.
I mentioned before about the Nashons too. I mean, there's more of a sense of you're born into your own lineage. In the sense, like, you don't get to choose what house you belong to. It's just, this is your family house. This is what your parents did or their parents did or, your great-grandparents did. So that's where you belong. And you might end up worshiping a certain Loa because that's your family Loa and you have to worship them.
All right. Actually, really quickly before Goddess Rhonda goes on to the next question, I noticed you said Vodou. So is that how, I just want to enunciate it better so I would know future-wise, because, I know voodoo, that's easily pronounced, but then the other one you said was Vodou?
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 Yeah.
Okay, so it's Vodou. Thank you.
And I just wanted to tell you, we've got some comments in the chat room. We've got Tamara, who says I've got to purchase this book. Jenny, all sounds so good. It makes me want to curl up and eat and drink and eat.
Oh.
and Goddess Jenny said that it sounds like Violet in Willy Wonka.
Willy Wonka.
And she can't wait to buy the book.
Yes. That's great. I love that scene.
Yeah, you're going to wake up tomorrow and find that, so many people have bought that book.
That'd be great.
I can't wait for that. Okay, so we are up to, all right, so you know what, a lot of people mix up voodoo and hoodoo. And so you've got your chapter about New Orleans voodoo and hoodoo, the amazing and the obscure. Can you tell us about that, and also let our viewers know what is the difference, because it just seems to go hand in hand with a lot of people. They don't understand the difference.
I think voodoo in a lot of ways in New Orleans is more, I mean, it's more, I don't know how to say this simply.
She has that perplexed look on her face.
I know. Well, it goes according, everybody's house is different, and everybody's house is right. You know, I'm not going to say that, oh, over here they do this, and they're wrong,
Right.
and over here these people do this, and they're wrong. But everybody's house is right. In New Orleans now, there's a lot of Haitian-influenced houses that do things in a much more Haitian way. There's my house, which does things, like I said, we had a huge Santeria influence to begin with, and my priestess also comes from several other traditions and backgrounds, so we do things in a slightly different way. But hoodoo is much less formalized. I guess that's the word that I'm looking for. You know, there aren't necessarily, okay, you know, I was talking before about Shango. On December 4th, we had the Shango feast in, you know, Lukumi. In my house in New Orleans, we done Shango feasts in December. So it's like, this is the time that it's associated, well, I'm not going to go into the history, but because of Santa Barbara, this is the time that people usually honor Shango, where there's no hoodoo feast of Shango that happens at any time. It's more, the practices are more folk magic related, where in the sense of like, oh, if I'm going to go do a healing, I'll go out into my yard and I'll see that there's these herbs growing there, and maybe those herbs will heal me, so I'll make a bath out of it and I'll use that to cleanse myself, and you know, things like that. Not that we don't do that in Santeria. There's definitely spells where you do that, but hoodoo is definitely more of a folk magic kind of, you know, one-on-one tradition that's not the same kind of formalized lineage thing that you have going on in voodoo.
That's interesting.
I so miss New Orleans. You know, Star and I
can't wait to go back.
And I just miss it. I just feel, do you go back and forth between New York and New Orleans, or are you just in New Orleans now?
No, I go back and forth. I go as often as I can.
I can dig it.
Yeah.
I hope we're going to see you at Hexfest next year.
I don't know. It's still up in the air, so maybe some prodding in the Christian direction would be nice.
Okay. All righty.
I would love to go back. I would totally love to go back. I mean, I'll be back for Mardi Gras.
Okay.
Yeah.
And kind of moving into your chapter on Santeria, there's also the confusion about the differences between the two, but I think you kind of went over some of that. Is there any other differences that you can think of to tell us about each of them that might be slightly different from what you said?
I think that Santeria's Lukumi is even more formalized than what most voodoo practitioners in this country are used to, because there's lots of initiations. It's, well, I don't want to say it's never done, but there's always seems to be more things depending on what your circumstances are, depending on what the circumstances of the house are. So there's a lot more rituals and rites and initiations and things like that that take place in that religion.
Okay.
I think that's one difference.
It's very intricate too. There's a lot of intricacy and clothing to be worn at certain times, and you know, a lot of things to do. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to get, you know, there's a store, used to be on 113th Street. There's a store where all the clothing is sewn by Santeras, and similar in that way that I was just talking about, you know, the prayers when you sew the Voodoo flags. There's a prayer when they sew the clothes for the initiations.
Wow,
so,
that's amazing.
It's a great store. I haven't been there in a while, but
thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Would not have known. I thought that, you know, I don't know what I thought. I just thought maybe somehow they were given it or something like that, or I don't know. But to hear that there's an actual store that creates them, that's amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, it was great. It was fantastic. Everything's white in there, like, you know.
Yes, I noticed.
You need a new hat, and you know, it's great.
I probably wouldn't last too long working there, because white things and me don't get along really well. I'm just like a magnet for stains. I'd probably get fired within the first hour because I've destroyed like everything just walking past it. But I would love to see it anyway because it sounds beautiful. So, can can you please tell us in your book about, and please forgive me if I mispronounce anything. Shango I can pronounce, but Obia, and is it Mayaism?
Yeah,
I had never heard of. I'm telling you, everyone should go to Goddess Lilith's blog because I have gotten an entire education just reading your blogs.
Oh, thank you.
Well, I am going to go straight and read it because I'll tell you, I have been looking for information on Obia for the longest time and couldn't find it. I am not kidding. It's almost like the secret, so secret that they don't even discuss it, you know?
No, it's true. I mean, my priestess Miriam, her husband was an Obe man, not from Jamaica, from Belize. So, and I've known some people from Belize that also practiced it. But even when I was in Jamaica, getting people to talk about Obeah was really hard, really hard. And they didn't want to. And I think, you know, I think it had a lot of stigma against it. A lot of, even now, people don't want to say that that's what they did, or, you know, people are very scared to admit that this actually still goes on. And, you know,
there's a lot of fear built around it, too.
Yeah. And I think what it became in a lot of ways was similar to some of the hoodoo practices that we were talking about, because people were isolated or working on their own. So it became much more of an individualized system. And, you know, unfortunately, not that many people practice it anymore.
Well, if they do, they keep it so secret that I'm not even kidding. You try to Google it, and you will be lucky if you find one page or two, and then they kind of, I don't know how to even explain it. It's just, and I'm like, okay, it's a mystery thing.
I know. I was so, you know, it's funny, you can still, even though they just opened up the borders to Cuba, you can go to Cuba and do a, you know, La Regla Lukumi tour and go to the Oshun shrine and do all of this, pay somebody money to give you a little thing. And there's nothing. There will be a tourist article every once in a while about Obeah, and everybody knows it happens, but nobody wants to admit that they're doing it or open it up the way that, you know, here we were talking about New Orleans or Salem, you know, we've commodified these things to such an extent that, you know, hopefully somebody's finally getting paid for this stuff. But there, no, it's just scary, you know.
Wow.
Yeah. But Shango again is also, people don't want to talk about that very much. I mean, Shango is primarily the tradition in Trinidad. So.
Oh, okay. That's my mom's background, so that's great. I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, so, well, I was talking before. It's interesting because, you know, like I said, in Haiti you get this predominance dealing with Ogun. In Trinidad you get this predominance dealing with Shango, like the whole religion is even called Shango. And there's a couple of books about it. Basically how it differs, you know, we were talking about flags before. The flags that they have are very simple. It's just like strips of cloth that they tie on themselves, which I think is interesting. And then they use them to dance and sort of do that kind of, you know, what is that called? The junkaroo? I always do it with the kids where they're dancing around. Yeah.
I forgot the name.
Yeah.
Juve, you mean? Is that not Juve, right?
No,
not Juve. Okay. I don't know. I can't remember.
Too. I'm sure I'm going to get some angry Trinidad call tomorrow, but I apologize. I can't remember. It's late.
Okay, so we forgot. You know, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. So, I mean, and I think, like I said, that's the difference there, where it's not this kind of elaborate flags. It's more of a tradition that looks, even in a lot of ways, similar to what you would see among the Yoruba. It's more, you know, out in nature. It's more dances. It's more, you know, simple costuming and gestures and things like that.
And the Mayaism, I've never heard of that one at all.
No, I had never heard of it either. I'm telling you, it's fascinating.
Unless it's Mayan based, maybe. I don't know.
No, it's kind of like Obeah in the sense that it's snake based. Pretty much it died out like over 100 years ago, so people don't talk about it very much.
Oh, okay.
See, that's just the kind of thing we like to talk about. We love it.
Right. So between the two then, between Obeah and Mayaism, so you're saying Obeah is not so much snake oriented, but Mayaism is?
Well, it was originally. It was like, if you go back and you read about what people said about it in the 1800s and whatnot, strangely enough, Jamaica and Belize were the places where people still did use snakes in ceremony. And the rest of the traditions don't really use snakes in ceremony, which is funny because you've got Marie Laveau having this giant snake and everybody associating voodoo with snakes and things like that. But she was actually the first one to do it here in this country and associate it with voodoo.
Wow.
That's interesting.
I'm not a fan of snakes, so.
Yes,
I
we're
love
not
snakes.
really allowed to talk about snakes in front of Goddess Star because they give her like the chills. But it just makes me, hearing you talk about that though, it reminds me of the old tent spiritualists that would set up their tents and they would do the snake wrangling. I'm wondering if that was borrowed from that.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I should just say flat out taken because it was just, basically taken. But it's still actually a very big thing. A lot of people in that, it's like, I can't think of exactly, I know it's not Pentecostal, but it's like even deeper than that where they just are really fundamentalists. And a lot of them have been killed handling those snakes.
Yeah, I had an anthropology professor that did his field work with them. It's an intense thing. Like, it does kind of border on this, talk about possession, which is something that's really big in voodoo, and everybody always wants to talk about this kind of like trance states that you can get in when you're working with these snakes, which is the part that I found fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I did not know Pentecostal did that, but I do know.
Oh.
I remember growing up and being very, not, the word is not terrified, but as a child watching, I think it was the Baptists. They were dressed in white, their heads were tied with white, like a white kind of a bow thing here that came from the back to the front and tied in the front. And it was called, I think, Catching the Power, and they'd be just like they were possessed, you know what I mean? And they were
a holiness church.
No, it was called the Baptist. I'm not kidding. That's what I remember. They kind of scared me because I was a child at the time, so it scared me back then.
Yeah.
In the Baptist church, because I come from, that's my whole background, is the whole Christian church background. Much to the chagrin of my family here, I sit as a pagan. But the women in the Baptist churches, I can't remember what they call themselves, but they wear all white. The ushers, they wear all white, but you will probably see them, though, as they're standing there, they get the Holy Ghost.
Yeah, or something.
That happens in most of the the AME churches, holiness churches, the Pentecostals. But the snake wranglers were now I remember the holiness church, and they allow themselves to get possessed and do things with snakes. I don't know a whole heck of a lot about it, but just sitting in a Pentecostal church can be very frightening as a child because they flip over the pews and everything.
Yeah.
And you think, oh my God.
Yeah, so this kind of scared me. I always thought they were going to hurt me or something.
It is, but listening to you, Goddess Lilith, I think that whole snake handling thing was probably borrowed from that. And they can, if no one talks about it anymore, then that allows them to lay claim to it, and that's not right.
Sure.
And of course they have to name it as the Holy Church or the different things, but they call it something else. But to us, if you look at it, it's very pagan oriented. But maybe I'm wrong.
Of course.
That's so interesting. And if you can give us a little bit about, I'm not sure if I'm saying this right, Candomblé?
Candomblé?
Candomblé.
Right.
Spiritism and Umbanda. I'm so sorry, Umbanda, right?
Yes, forgive us.
Yeah.
Yes,
that's fine.
I'd never heard of those two names. Spiritism I have, but Candomblé and Umbanda I have not heard.
All right. So those are primarily, there's a lot of unrest going on in Brazil now concerning the traditions. It was 10 or 20 years ago that they had some of the strongest traditions anywhere in the entire world, but they've been being persecuted by the Christian right like everybody else lately. So for the past couple of years, they've been having a lot of unrest and a lot of temples have been shutting down, and they're really under the gun over there from angry right-wing nuts. So that's not good. But basically it was a spectrum, the Spiritism, Kardec and a lot of those people were in Brazil, and doing this kind of mediumship, direct kind of, seance work that we're all familiar with that went on in the 1800s. And obviously because Brazil and the Middle Passage was a huge, stop in the slave trade, that a lot of slaves were there and got off there. And basically the Afro-Brazilian tradition took two different forms, and one was candomblé and one was umbanda. And basically, some people will make, whatever, you could say it's a racist remark, but that, candomblé would be for people that were lighter skinned. It would be much more, reserved or resigned, whereas umbanda was much more wild and more full of, darker skinned people, more street people, things like that. So, you've got deities like Pombagira and umbanda, that's, a street prostitute, that's, protects everybody who has to be out there earning a living on the corner. You've got things like that where they, and then you've got Yemaya, who on the other spectrum side of things is like a mother goddess that, she's in both traditions, but, she's really heavy in candomblé. On January 1st is her feast day down there, and what they do is have this huge thing, like if you turn on the news there, you'll see, thousands of these floats with candles and flowers and cakes for Yemaya being floated out into the ocean.
Wow, I would love to see that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, check it out. And I'll say it properly in case there's any Brazilians listening. It's not Yemaya, it's Yemanja. So that's
okay.
With an I
love
and an E
hearing
and a
all
J,
this.
and yeah.
You have a lot of knowledge in your head. You really do. That's
thank
awesome.
you.
You also have really good energy. I can feel your energy through the video. I've never said that to another guest, but your energy,
thank you.
Feel it. It's like buzzing.
Thank you.
So I like it.
Yes, and it's a good thing. It's a good one.
It's a good thing. It
very
really
proud,
is.
very happy to have you here.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. This is great. Yay.
So you have also Voodoo, Santeria, and Candomblé on the silver screen. Now, this is something that interests me because I would love to find movies to learn more about that. Can you give us some movies that we can look for, maybe on Netflix, or maybe tell us where we can find them, that we can learn more about this?
All right. Well, I love Daughters of the Dust. I just wrote about Daughters of the Dust, Julie Dash's film about basically the religion, how it's practiced. I mean, they call it voodoo in the movie, but how it's practiced among the Geechee people in South Carolina. So that kind of area, and it's about the transition between all this time that we're talking about, this transition in the early, late 1800s, early 1900s, where, there was freedom and people had to decide what they were going to do with their lives and their religions and their belief systems and how people were going to move forward. So I think it's really fascinating, and there's a lot of really good stuff in there about how they do it. I also really like, it's funny, my friends and I were talking about Eve's Bayou, which to me, I just, here's a little fun fact about Eve's Bayou. In Silence of the Lambs, her best friend, the black chick who was the cop, Cassie Lemons, she was the director for Eve's Bayou. So that was like the first major
that's so interesting.
Hollywood film. Yeah. So
fun tidbit.
Eve's Bayou. I just love it because, it really shows to me the feeling of how the tradition is, that like you have to be careful what you wish for, you have to be careful who you trust, you have to be careful what you promise, and how those lessons through the eyes of a little girl are just so powerful. I think she does a really good job with that. So I would start with those two. And then if you really want to go on a hunt, Zora Neale Hurston made films, and they weren't available until maybe, I want to say 5 or 6 years ago, but the Library of Congress released them in a collection. So you can see her early voodoo footage that she shot also in South Carolina and in Florida. And it was really interesting because I met the woman who had discovered them, because they were buried away, locked away, because she had a rich patron who took all her research and locked it away. So I didn't even know Zora Neale Hurston made films. And then so they were in the Library of Congress, and I went to go see them, and it really, genuinely looked like evidence of a Santeria ritual. You can see voodoo flags in there. You can see Zora Neale Hurston drumming. It's some amazing stuff.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's in a Library of Congress collection. The film's at 1928. I mean, that's some stuff right there.
I'm going to kind of let you guys know about one that I know of. Really quickly. In the TV show Friday the 13th. I don't know if you ever saw that. It's a Canadian TV
Oh,
show.
I love that show.
I love that show.
Right. I have the whole collection, and I was. There is one about. I don't know if you remember the one about the Papalegua and all the different.
Yes.
There were 4 of them, I think, of the earth, air, fire, water, and that particular one, and they kind of went into a lot of like almost like videotapes, original videotapes from Africa or Haiti of different things that they did, and I thought that was so different and original, almost like they took certain things that were real and brought it to the screen, you know? So I think that would be something that would be great. I don't remember. Maybe I'll try to find it and put it up on the things later on for you guys. But it was just so interesting that, as you mentioned, the Silver Screen with East Bayou, that one is a good one for you guys to look at.
Oh, I would love
and you remember that one.
Yeah, where did you get the whole collection of the Friday the 13th series?
Girl, I was stalking someone on Amazon. Because they were I was waiting. It was so expensive, and I'm going, somebody is going to bring it down. And I kept going, somebody. And I kept stalking this guy, and finally he brought it down, and I was like, yes! And I bought it quickly.
Wow.
I have it, and I'm just like, it sucks, you know, but I have literally the whole collection, and I keep watching that one. Oh, it's awesome. I'm going to find it later on, and I'm going to make sure you guys have the access to it.
Yeah.
You gotta watch it.
That's great.
Watch it. It's really good. That was a really good show, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I had that car. That was my first car, that old Mercedes. It was great.
The one in that show?
Yes, I had the same not the actual one, but I had the same
No, I know, yeah.
Yeah, in the same year. Yeah.
Wow, that's so awesome. That show was amazing.
Yeah.
And one of the things I liked about it too, yes, they made not fun, but they took things out of the bazaar kind of a thing, but some of them were based on facts almost. Didn't you see some of them, like different religions that they brought in? They were based on facts, even the one on witches. Yeah. But considering it's a show from back in the 80s, some of it, they show you the good and the bad, that it wasn't all bad, it wasn't all good, it was just something in between that based on the individual. That was pretty smart for the producers back then.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
Very.
Okay. I just had to bring that up because I'm a big movie person, as you can see around me. It's all videos and movies.
That's great.
Yeah. Okay.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Let me see. I wanted to ask you about your spiritual lessons from sci-fi. We love you, Ronald D. Moore. Sorry. I had to ask.
Ronald D. Moore. I do. I'm going to start stalking him, man. I love Ronald D. Moore. I just think he's amazing. You know, I mean, when I was in film school, they used to get on me for playing with time and space. And I don't think anybody plays with time and space like as well in the mainstream media as Ronald D. Moore. You know, my godson was here yesterday and we were talking about it. He does in Battlestar Galactica. He does it in Helix. He does it in Outlander. You know, and it's like, life is like that sometimes, you know what I mean? You'll be in a circle and you'll feel like you're there 200 years in the past, and you can feel the energy of your ancestors, and you can feel the pull of all those little people to come in the future, you know, and it's really beautiful, and that's why I love Ronald D. Moore. So there you go.
Well, you know, we've got a question for you in the chat room. We have a question from Goddess Tamra, who says she learned a bit about Shango while studying religions of Brazil, their songs. And she says, which, if any, type of magic, excuse me, I have bright lights in my eyes, which, if any, type of magic would the Geechee have practiced?
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going with, you know, obviously, there would have been a fair amount of hoodoo going on because there weren't formalized practices in the tradition. But what they call it, what she calls it in Daughters of the Dust, is voodoo. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, and Julie Dash is Geechee, and she wrote it to be accurate according to her people. So I have to at least go on her word partially as an informant. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, voodoo got a lot of bad rap from people, I think, you know, and now I think it still gets a bad rap. So I think people started calling it other things.
Right. A lot of people
kind of what we do with witchcraft too. I mean, they kind of do that same thing with witchcraft a bit. They call it different names.
Sure.
You know?
They do the same thing with that.
Yeah, they call it Wicca because it sounds better to people, you know, more acceptable.
Yeah.
So it is what it is.
It is.
I
And
think there was also, too, I wanted to say about the Geechee. I mean, you know, when you go down in South Carolina, that's the land of the, you know, the Igbo people. So, you know, we were talking before about Nigeria and, you know, I mean, obviously different groups of people had different practices that they brought over to different parts. It was different over there and it was different over here. So, you know, a lot of Igbo people were brought to South Carolina, and the stories that they used to tell was that they could fly, and their method of flying would be that, you know, they would just walk straight into the ocean. So that would be the story that, you know, they would tell the kids that they flew, but they just couldn't take it anymore where they were. So I think that a lot of what the Igbo practice died out. You know, there was, again, a lot more folk magic, a lot of things. You know, you got customs like Haint Blue down there, where there's a certain color blue that'll keep away spirits. You know, that's a very hoodoo thing, you know.
And we also have Ginny, who says, if anyone, Ginny, thank you so much. I owe you, babe. I owe you.
What was that?
If anyone has Amazon Prime, seasons 1 through 3 of Friday the 13th are streaming for free. So
Nice.
you'll know what Rhonda will be doing.
You are kidding. Wow.
So I'm so excited about that.
Oh, yeah.
That was such a great show. That's from the 80s, right, Ginny? I hope that's from the not the not Friday the 13th, that horror guy, but actually Friday the 13th, the Canadian series. I was always so proud of that show because it was from Toronto, all made in Toronto, and I saw certain areas I loved that I knew. And then they made it, and then they did this stupid thing. They made it in Toronto and shipped it out. We never saw it until they brought it back.
Got a star? Got a star?
Yes.
You're letting everyone know how old we are. How old you are, actually, not you.
Girl. If I'm letting them know about me, you just said how much you love it.
Well, from the reruns that I saw, like 20 years after it was made.
Yes, of course. I'm doing the reruns, too.
That's great.
And we've got
I love my age.
1987.
That in her heritage, the Geechee people are in her heritage, Goddess Tamra. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
And the show is from 1987, according to Goddess Ginny. Naturally, I was just born that year, so, you know. My mother watched it and let me know what was going on.
So young.
So good.
Goddess Ginny is showing her age.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, we like to have fun here. So can you tell us, okay, we're going to move on to your book, because as usual, time is flying by us. 55 ways to connect. Oh, you know what, before we do that, before we move on to that book, can you give us any resources to help people learn more about voodoo and Santeria and all these awesome things that they can learn about, aside from your awesome book that they need to buy?
Oh, thank you. Well, we had a priest. I was mentioning before that we had a lot of Santeria influences in my house in New Orleans. So my friend Luis Nunez, he has a book called Santeria. He's passed away now, but he has a book called Santeria that's very good. It's got all the patakis, all the stories. It's got all the things to use for offering. It's got, you know, everything you would want to just start learning about Santeria, La Reba Lukumi. So that's nice. And let's see what I recommend for voodoo. I do really like Milo Rigaud's books. I did mention Zora Neale Hurston. I love her book about voodoo. You know, both of those things I think people could check out.
Awesome. All right, then let's move on to your book, 55 Ways to Connect to Goddess. And you talk about, which is true, how we can become disconnected from the goddess energy. And so I'm wondering, you know, what is your theory on how we allow that to happen?
I think it's you know, sometimes it takes a long time for people to find their paths, or a long time for people to understand the way certain things work in the universe, and they tend to get discouraged. You know, we live in a culture of now, everything, you know, capitalism
is what I call it.
You know, yeah. It's what does my friend call it? Narcissitard. Everybody's so, whatever. Narcissistic. Yeah. So
that's nice. That's good.
Yeah. So, I just mean, people, it's hard to see past your own struggle sometimes, and it's hard to see the bigger picture, and it's hard to connect, especially, I got a lot of things in the book about what do you do if you're in a city, like sometimes it's hard to connect if you're in the middle of a city and you're a pagan and you're not, I don't know, I've got crazy people on motorcycles outside my window right now. I don't know if you heard that, but that was a little sound effect appropriate. But, there's different ways that you have to do things, especially in our modern world to get back to these ancient traditions. So I think that's why. It's just the nature of how we've progressed.
Mm-hmm. Right. And one of the biggest... I'm sorry, go ahead.
Just add something to that. I'm just going to go ahead and throw it out there and call me sexist if you like, because part of my healing practice is I restore goddess energy and god energy depending on the gender that I'm working on. And it's my own personal belief that we as women and men too, back in the olden days, we had our womanly things to do and men had their manly things to do. Women, would stay home, take care of the home, take care of the accounting, take care of all that, and the men would go out and bring home the bacon. But now in today's modern society, there's so many single moms and single mothers, single women that you can't just stay home anymore. And I think that because we've had to take on a lot of masculine roles from the olden days, we can get out of balance with our own feminine energy. And the same as with the guys. They're now doing things that traditionally were feminine things. If they're a single father, now they've got to get out there and change diapers and do all those things. So I think our basic energies get out of balance because we've had to combine and blend the roles. And we're not in those traditional roles anymore that allowed us to just absorb all of our feminine energy, use our feminine energy, project it, give it, that sort of thing. Now we've had to pull on our masculine energy to survive, and I really think that has thrown people off balance. That's just my personal opinion.
Right. I think you're right, though. I think you're absolutely right.
Too.
Go ahead, Goddess Star.
Okay. One of the biggest questions I wanted to ask is, I've heard is how do I connect? How do I connect to the goddess? A lot of people kind of turn and ask you that because they're like, none is reaching out to me, or I'm not feeling that energy coming towards me. So if you can please share with us some of the ways to do that, that would be really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, they're all really simple, and it was really hard to write because it was really hard to write something that was so simple, if that makes sense,
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, there's things about in there like, purge your space, which, okay, sure, that makes sense. If your whole space is cluttered, if your whole life is cluttered, it's going to make your mind cluttered. It's going to make things that much harder to get through to you. So just having everything, get rid of things that aren't working because, it doesn't matter what tradition you're in. It doesn't matter if you're, Buddhist. It doesn't, you can't have things that are broken around. That's not good. Or common sense even, it just doesn't make sense. So there's simple things like that to do. There's things like, go out, go next to water, understand what your own sacredness is. Your body's made up of water. Like if you can't connect to water, well, you got water all over the place.
Right.
Stand in it, stick your toes in it, wiggle your toes around, really feel it, realize that it is all around you. I was talking before about, doing things in an urban context. I have a friend who used to do an urban magic workshop where she would talk about our water goes through an elaborate system of pipes all underneath us and everything. That's very magical if you think about it. Most of us don't because we've got other things to worry about because we're living in the city. But there is that sacred water that's there for us, even in the middle of the concrete jungle.
Absolutely. And we kind of forget that actually because we think because we're in the city, we're not connected to any of it. So it's interesting that you have to remind people about that.
You know what? You really do. When I left New York and moved to Albuquerque, which is the desert, the first apartment that I lived in, I made sure they had this little pond. It was a little duck pond, so I went there because then it was water on the property. the first house that I purchased had a pond in the backyard, so that sold me right away. And now in the apartment that I live in now, my window is right out, the pool is right outside my window. So you can
Nice.
find water even in the desert. Find water to be around, because I'm a Pisces, I have to be around water. So you can find water to be around. And you know, Goddess Lilith, another big question that you've probably even heard yourself is, which goddess should I connect to? We've got a lot of new people that are unsure. And
Yeah.
say, which goddess should I go with? Which one should I connect to? What advice do you have for them on which goddess that they should select, or how they could even choose one? Because that's where there's so many, I think they just get confused and lost and don't know what to do.
Yeah, there are a lot of goddesses out there. I think that, you know, for everybody it's a process. For some person, they might want to just go get a deck of goddess cards and pick which one speaks to them. For another person, like you said, you know, you're a water person. You want to be around water. Maybe if somebody who was a water person wanted to be around water, they would look at water goddesses and see which one started to speak to them. I mean, I'm a really big believer in using things. You know, we talk about the ashe of things, which is the sacred energy. So let's say I was thinking about, oh, maybe I'm feeling a connection to Aphrodite. So I would go and I would say, oh, look, rose quartz is for Aphrodite. Maybe I'll take that. I'll put it under my pillow. Do I have good dreams? Do I have nightmares? If I have nightmares, maybe I should move along.
Right.
Or figure out what's going on with that and why she doesn't want me to do that right now. But,
Right,
you know,
right.
it's a process and it's individual for everybody. I mean, I don't think we should all go, you know, worship Hecate, you know, although I'm sure she'd love it. But everybody's going to have a different reaction to that energy the same way, you know, I was mentioning peanuts before. Some people are going to be allergic to peanuts. I was down in New Orleans when we were there for Hex Fest. This guy was telling me peanuts were an aphrodisiac and he ate them all the time and put them on everything.
See, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, and I used to love everything peanuts, and instead now I'm allergic to almonds. And I love almonds. Oh, wow.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's interesting that you mentioned about it's different for each person, because I think also some gods and goddesses choose you as well, because like I have mentioned to Goddess Rhonda so many times, I knew nothing about Yamaya. And for some reason, everywhere I went, everything I did, there she was. Till one day I took somebody handed me the first picture of her, and then they said, you need to take this. And I was like, okay,
that's great.
Who is it? You know, and I had to go research her, and, you know, now she's on my altar, and I'm still researching her because I really don't know her, but she's like, hello.
Right.
Kind of, you know, and I know nothing about her before. So it's very different for each person.
It is. It really is.
It really is. And they will find you. The goddesses and gods will. They've tapped on my shoulder plenty of times. They will find you. You know, I have a strong feeling of deja vu. Like, we've all done this before. I don't know if anybody feels that, but it's just so strong. I don't know why.
Yeah.
That's just a
Okay, so I just kind of wanted to kind of go over it. What are some of the goddesses that are covered in your book?
Well, like I said, it pretty much covers everything. You know, it's not necessarily about, okay, this goddess and then this goddess. It's more like, here's 55 different things you can do to connect to whatever goddess you want to connect to. I use examples. Okay. Like if you wanted to connect to Oshun, like we mentioned, maybe you would have some oranges, maybe you would have some honey, maybe you would go to the river, but it's not like you know, encyclopedia. It's more of anybody can use it. You know, my godson called it the Tao Te Ching of goddess worship, because it's just like the teeniest, simplest, whatever that you can use to go forward.
Okay, that's beautiful. I think that actually will be very helpful for a lot of people who are still searching and trying to find, you know, how can they connect with that particular goddess. So that's excellent.
Yeah. Well, I came up with it when I was in recovery, because, you know, one of the first things they always talk about is how you can, you know, connect to God or higher power or goddess or however you see that in your life. And people really didn't know what to do. And I was talking to, you know, there weren't very many pagans in my recovery group. So I'm talking to people that were very, you know, heavy Christian Catholic background, and they had no idea how to even begin. And I was like, okay, well, how about you go hug a tree? You know, and it sounds really simple and quite ridiculous, but for them, they had never really experienced anything like that because that was not part of their traditional religious background.
Right.
That's really great. And simplistic too. That's really good for a lot of people.
Yeah.
It is. And it's an excellent way to start getting in touch with you. Go hug a tree. You know, that's an excellent idea. And I really like the idea of people who are trying also to figure out which goddess is getting the goddess tarot decks and choose one and let the goddess choose you. I think that's brilliant.
Yeah.
So tell us about your voodoo zombie silent rave with Thriller Flash Mob.
She's laughing.
I'm laughing already.
She's laughing.
I know. If I wasn't so tired, I would do the Thriller Flash Mob for you, but it was hilarious. It was just, well, I get called a lot to do rituals in public spaces, which, having done it for almost more years than I can care to count at this point, everybody has different expectations. And when you have a group of, you know, 50, 100, 200, 300 people, and everyone has different expectations, it's hard to get very much of anything done. So I was trying to figure out what we could do. So we decided, my godkids and I were talking about it, well, nobody wants to talk to anybody anyway at a ritual. You know what I mean? Even though we're pagans, we're quite antisocial, and we really, it's new, people don't really know each other when they're at an event, like, so we're like, we'll have a silent rave. Everybody can be listening to their own music, and they can just go around and do whatever they wanted to do, which really excited me as a ritualist, because it was like you could choose your own trance music that you were going to put on and step to that. So we decided to make it a rave. So there we go. So that was that. But then we ended up having like a projection system too. So we projected Thriller, and then, you know, my ex-boyfriend was doing Vincent Price on the mic, and we did the Thriller Flash Mob, and then it was great. We had people like spinning fire and everything. It was really cool. Yeah. So, but it was for the ancestors, because that's what I usually end up doing, because the ancestors love a good party. So they really liked this party. It was nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You didn't happen to get that on film, did you?
I was just thinking that. I was like, I don't know where it is, and it was this kind of thing where we rehearsed the flash mob all day, did it perfectly, the rehearsal was perfect, and then we so messed it up during the ritual it wasn't even funny. Like, everybody was it was like a bad scene from The Walking Dead. Everybody was at different parts in the song and laughing. It was hilarious. It was so good. And no, I don't have any idea where the footage. I don't think I do know where it is. I'm not talking to the person who shot it.
Oh,
okay. Pagan community stories, you know.
That'll do it.
Hey.
Yep, there it goes. But whatever, okay. It was fun. Yeah.
You have you also have some great info on your blog, and I'm going to share with everyone in the chat room. Since it's a holiday time, and everyone is spending tons of money, please tell us about your Black Friday money magic that works all year. I'm waiting for that myself. Okay, I'm waiting for that. The all year spell. Let me go share this in the chat room for everyone there.
All right, cool. Well, this is a silver and gold oil formula, pretty much, because it's something that, you know, if any botanica that you go to, which, you know, it's a Santeria / Lakumi supply store, basically, for those who don't know what a botanica is, and they have formulas for gold and silver, oro y plata. So this is to get money, prosperity, get rid of debt. It's primarily for Shango, but I was talking before about Oshun and how she helps with debt, and she's in charge of gold. So it's kind of this Oshun and Shango energy, but it's not money that wouldn't do this spell if you were trying to get a raise at work or get a new job or something. This is like money that's like a gift from the universe, you know. This is like found money or won money or, you know, whatever, some rebate or something like that. So it's gold and silver glitter, which I like using glitter because it's pretty and sparkly, and I think that the spirits react to it. 6 drops of cinnamon oil, 6 drops of orange oil, 1 drop of clove oil. And then I usually use sweet almond oil for a base. You don't have to use almond oil if you have a reaction to almonds, obviously. You can use peanut oil, but I got yelled at once by Church of All Worlds people because peanut oil will stain the sheets. So if you're doing it in some sort of...
You got yelled at? They couldn't just say nicely?
kind of thing. That, oh, we can't use peanut oil in bed. It messes with the orgy. So, okay.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, but okay, you can use it if you're just using it for yourself and you're not going to use it as a massage oil or anything like that. So, but yeah, it works really nice. And it's, I mean, those are all simple things that you can find anywhere. You go to the health food store and find that stuff. So,
you know, you also had on that page, I was just trying to find it, there was a money spell using a Rose of Jericho, and I use Rose of Jericho in a lot of the stuff I do because I, you know, the peacock is the sister to the phoenix, and I associate really heavily with the phoenix as well. I have one tattooed. Actually, I have 2 of them tattooed on my back. So I wanted to. Do you remember that spell? I was just trying to find it, and I wanted to talk about that one too. It's on the Black Friday Money Magic blog, and you made a money spell with a Rose of Jericho. Is that ringing a bell?
that sounds right. I'm trying to figure out what's in it, though, other than, I mean, we do one.
I'm trying to find it.
That's a Rose of Jericho with rainwater, and you get May rainwater because that's the rainwater that comes after Beltane, so it's the light half of the year for prosperity. So you would put May rainwater in there. I mean, if you didn't have May rainwater, in a pinch, you could use spring water.
Mm-hmm.
And then you put all your spare change in there with the Rose of Jericho. And then normally I would do like, well, it depends what you usually do. I would do like 3 drops of success oil. I mean, that could be anything from patchouli, but if you can't stand patchouli, you could use like vetiver. You could probably use something like myrrh. That would probably also work. And then it just comes back to life.
All right. That's awesome.
No, I love Rose of Jericho. I love watching it come back to life.
I do too.
You know, it's so cool.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Okay, so here we are. We've got the silver and gold spell oil, which I will be making also after the show.
Oh, okay. There
I
you
have
go.
all those ingredients, so I'm ready to roll with that one.
See, yeah, it's easy.
Okay. So I wanted to ask you also, you also have a video on your blog on making Grigree bags. If you can tell us a little bit about those bags and how to make them, that'd be great. And I will share that link on the chat room for everyone in the chat room.
Oh, cool. Okay.
This is the link to the Grigree bags.
All right. Well, Grigree bags, they're kind of like, I mean, basically it's a natural bag. Any natural, you're talking about fabrics before, so any natural bag you want to use, you could use just like a muslin bag, or you can make your own cotton bag, whatever you want to use. You can wear it around your neck, you can carry it in your pocket, you can bury it. It's pretty much just a portable charm that you can use in whatever way you need to use it. So, and what it's filled with is they're similar to Native American medicine bundles. It's filled with herbs, oils, sometimes there's animal magic and things like that in there. There's a Damballa La Flambeau Grigree bag. Basically, I've got 3 separate Grigree bag videos that we did. My godkids came over and I said, what do you want to make? And they said, okay, we want to make these things. So Damballa La Flambeau is for passion and fire. We did a ritual once. It was Damballa La Flambeau, the fire down below. So that kind of new beginnings. For those who aren't familiar with Damballa, he's the serpent who goes under the waters in The Serpent and the Rainbow, because the story is that one serpent went underneath the waters to bring the religion to the United States and the rest of the Americas. And the other one, his wife, Aida Wedo, made the crown of the rainbow. and brought it to the New World. So, and here they met and they fell in love and the religion blossomed. So Damballa is that sort of primal energy coming back from Africa, similar to anybody who does any kind of Egyptian Kemetic stuff. When they talk about the Ba and the Ka, a lot of people think Damballa really is that Da or Ba force in the universe. So this kind of like primal masculine energy coming from Africa or Egypt or wherever you want to figure it comes from. So anyway, so Damballa La Flambeau is that. This one has all different fiery things from him that we put together in it. And, you know, as she said, the links are right there.
Very cool. And you know, when I was watching that video, I loved the music, the background music. Can you tell me the name of the song and who the artist was? Because I'd really like to have that.
You can have it, and I think this is great. You asked me about it. You can have it for free because it's free Google Music. So
we like free works.
Yeah, total free license, free everything, whatever. The people's name is Spinning Clocks, and it's called Silver UFO.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Just writing that down for later.
Yeah.
I'll put it in the chat room.
Okay, so let's get back to this. So you told us about the Damballa La Flambeau. Now let's go ahead and talk about those blue balls. Who needs blue balls? And I'm putting the link in the chat room about blue balls.
Who needs blue balls? I know. I think that was my best title I've come up with.
Oh, it was because you know what? It caught my attention immediately. And then as I'm looking at it, you're like, if you've got your mind in the gutter, you know, go take a shower or something. I was like, oh, wow.
Yeah. No, I loved that. And then I was sharing it with the title, Don't Say I Never Gave You Blue Balls.
And she had to move on to the blue balls already when I wanted to talk about my man, Brigitte.
Oh, I'm sorry. We'll come back to that.
Is it Brigitte, right?
Yes, Brigitte. Yeah.
My man, Brigitte. Okay, got it. I should know better. I'm the Canadian French part, you know. I should remember and know better. But when you hear in the United States, and you know how they kind of take the names and Brigitte, you know, and it's like it's not. It's Brigitte.
It's Brigitte. Yeah.
Anyways, could you tell us a little bit about Maman Brigitte before she talks about your blue balls again?
Okay. Maman Brigitte. There's a lot of controversy about Maman Brigitte. I mean, we do her in my house, and I think part of the reason that we do her in my house in New Orleans is that there was a large Irish population that was brought into New Orleans, so where in some traditions she might have much lesser kind of prominence, because there were so many Irish in New Orleans, they were like, wow, she's similar to Bridget or Brige, so they saw a commonality there, and she got more worshipped, and, you know, we still worship her today. But she's sort of this old grandma I was talking about before, this kind of protector of people that are, you know, women who have been wronged, you know, street women, things like that. So she's got this kind of really strong sense of justice for people who don't really have any justice anymore, which I think makes it very relevant for us today when there's so many things going on where we need justice and we just can't get it. So Maman Brigitte, I think, is one of the most beautiful goddesses. But, you know, she's a grandmother, so she's very wise and very powerful. But she doesn't speak very often, and when she does, you better stand back, you know.
Right. And what about Nana Boku? Are they in any way relatable or anything like that?
No, they're not, but I just did a ritual for both of them. Because
good. That's wonderful.
Yeah, I was doing an event whose theme was crones, so I wanted to talk about crones in different traditions. So Nana Boku, to me, is a crone goddess, you know, from another tradition, or from, again, depending on what house, you might find a house that worshipped both of them together. But, you know, primarily she's more of an African goddess. She goes back to, you know, some of the Nigerian people and things like that. And she, again, is a fierce grandmother who's a protector. She's got this, like, stick that she'll beat you with. Like, it's really intense. She's got some stuff going on. But I did a ritual at the event that I was at, which was about how that these grandmothers have ancient wisdom to give you. You also have great secret secrets to give over to them, so that there's always this balance and a give and take between us and these ancient mothers, which I think is really important. You know, even if, I mean, we talk about so many times we want to do this, and I think it's really important to remind people that we have to give back. And even if we don't, okay, maybe you don't have, you know, I can't go leave a giant offering in the ocean or go leave a giant offering in the cemetery. Even if you offer your breath in a sacred way, I think that's doing something to honor them and to give them a moment and elevate them a little bit and elevate yourselves.
Right, right. And it's interesting that you said that even the simplest thing as giving them a breath. But I think a lot of, like Maman Brigitte Nana Buku, as to how often they are brought up or recognized, I think in general there are lots of gods and goddesses from around the world and whatever different traditions, and a lot of them are not recognized. Right. So the fact that people will take the time to recognize them and do a ritual in their names and different things, I think they are blessed to have that, and I'm sure they're quite happy that people are still remembering their names. You know, so I think it's wonderful.
Definitely.
Very much so. Well, are you satisfied? Can we talk about the blue balls now?
Oh, the blue balls. I forgot about
I knew it.
Balls.
Yes, yes, you can go ahead and talk about your blue balls.
Thank you.
Okay. So blue balls are like laundry bluing, basically. That's what I always called it.
Yeah.
And it's for protection. You know, I was mentioning before Haint Blue. It's this kind of, basically, if you put it in your laundry, it'll make your laundry white. But we use it in protection magic to sort of protect our space. Mm-hmm. I've got recipes where we use it as a part of a wash and things like that. So you can get them. I know you put up a bazillion links for my blog. You can get them on my blog. But, you know, here in New York, we can get them I get them at the dollar store.
Yeah.
Like they just have them, you
really?
know. Out. Yeah. Yeah.
Do that. Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah. So
that's wonderful. I grew up with it. I remember seeing them. They take it and they put it in a little bag and they pin it to your clothing. And I used to be looking at it going, what are you doing, Mom? Because, you know, she's so Christian, you know. If I ask her about it now, she'd be like, I don't know what you're talking about. Okay? I don't know what you're talking about. Whatever. But you know what I mean, right? They will take it and put it in the blue. I think they put it in a blue bag, too. Either a blue or a white small bag, and they pin it to your clothing. And I think it was for protection.
Could be.
I don't know. Then why would they, you know what I mean? I'm thinking, why would they put it on our clothes as we're leaving for school? But we'll see. I'm going to have to ask her.
They put it while you were leaving for
I'm going to have to ask
definitely.
if she will own up to it. If she will own up to it.
Well, a lot of these things, too, you know, like I was mentioning Haint Blue, you know, that really, you know, the chemicals in that will kill bugs and keep stuff away, you know. So I think it works for that, too.
Okay. There you go.
That's awesome.
Yeah, keep everything bad away. That's good. I like that.
Yeah. Okay, are we done with the blue balls? Can I ask?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Would you please give us your recipe for jinx, hex, or curse removing wash?
Okay. All right, let me find it here. All right, here we go. Okay. I feel like everything I've been doing lately is just, you know, hex removing and curse removing and protection stuff. It seems to be a rough time for everybody lately.
Yeah, I've been getting a lot of that too going on. Oh my goodness. I have to do one right after the show tonight. I've got to go do one now too.
No, I know.
I have to have a client I've got to go do right after.
Yeah, everybody. All right, so I use 1 cup holy water, and, you know, I use holy water from the Catholic Church. I mean, normally if I'm down in New Orleans, I get it from the Shrine of St. Jude, because that to me, if someone's coming for work, if someone's doing work, chances are it's impossible. So good thing to have St. Jude on your side, who's the patron saint of the impossible.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I like St. Jude holy water. 3 drops of sandalwood oil, because I like sandalwood for almost everything. Spring water, which, you know, I was talking before about urban magic and even just magic for yourself and magic. I love to use tap water too sometimes for spirit of place. I mean, people don't think about that, but even if you're in the middle of nowhere, the pipes go under your house and through your space, and like that's definitely has its own sort of magic blessing in it. So if you don't want to use spring water, you can use tap water. 1 cup of Florida water. I like the Murray and Landmans. I don't get a kickback. I should get a kickback from that. But I love Murray and Landmans. It's been the same formula since, I think, what is it, I have the bottle over there, 1811 or something ridiculous like that. So that's just crazy. Here, I'm finding the bottle because I have to look because that's who I am. All right, here we go. No, it doesn't say on the bottle. Oh, wait, my price tag is over it. Okay, that's good. That's hilarious. Okay, 1811. My Sicilian grandmother used to use it, and I just think that's so, like, fantastic. I know Peruvians that use it. Everybody uses it. But strangely enough, I'll tell you this other secret about it. Depending on where you get it, it either has a silver cap or a gold cap. So if you're north of the equator, it has a silver cap, and if you're south of the equator, it has a gold cap.
Wow, that's interesting.
It's a different formula. It smells slightly different. So that's the story with that.
Okay.
Okay, so Florida water, and then I do 3 bluing balls or blue balls in a large bowl, and then you put it out before the full moon. Like, I like leaving things to charge for the full moon, so you put it on the windowsill where the moon's rays are going to hit it overnight. And then what I do is I do a blessing where we make the crossroads with it. Like, if this was it, I would go like that and then side to side like that. And then I also like to throw things up in the air gently a teeny bit. Oh, look, I just dropped it, but that's because I have one hand. But you get the idea. So all of these things, that releases it into the world of the spirits. The crossroads gives it away to, I mentioned before, Legba, so it allows us to go past Legba and, you know, have him open the way for us, and then throwing it into the air puts it in the hands of the spirits so that they can do whatever blessing they need to do for it and return it to us. And then take that wash and do your windows, the windowsills, your threshold, your doorways, all of that kinds of things. I mean, I guess you could use it as a bath, too, if you wanted to. Stick a cup of it in the bathtub.
Yeah, that sounds like a really great idea to do that.
Yeah.
The bath in it just sounds awesome. Just to clear everything, clear your energy. So one of the articles that I enjoyed, which is many of your articles, is the 6 tips for dealing with unwanted ancestors.
Wow, that's a good one.
I'm going to put that link in the chat room, but please tell us, how do we do that effectively without hopefully not hurting their feelings, I guess? Although sometimes they ask you to get rid of them.
I mean, what did my godson say? If you wouldn't invite him over for Thanksgiving, don't invite him over.
It's so right. He's so right.
It's true, though. You know, there's some people you're just like, no, I don't want them in my house. So, and I think, and a lot of people I've met really do have some hugely objectionable people that they feel still connected to in a lot of ways, you know, even though they've passed. So I think I kind of thought when I wrote the post that it would be a good idea, but I was not ready for, a lot of people really responded to it well. And I'm very glad about that I could help them, and I could just sort of come up with simple things, again, that people could do to sort of help themselves. All right, my first one is slam the doors, which, again, this works no matter what tradition you're in. There's a Celtic, angry fairy banishing where you slam the doors and curse and yell and things like that. So slamming the doors is always good for, you don't want somebody there, you slam the doors. Even if somebody, just think about it, if you're somewhere and you hear somebody next door slam the door, you're like, oh, what's going on?
Right.
So it's definitely like sort of an exclamation point to, this is my space. I want this to be my space, and you're not welcome here if I have not invited you here.
Right.
And a lot of us live in, I'm sitting here, whatever, this place that I live in, what is it? This building's like got to be at least 120 years old. I'm not the first person who lived here, and I'm probably not going to be the last person who lived here. So there's a lot of other energies that are around, in a space sometimes, and you have to sort of claim it as your own.
Right.
All right, what am I going with next? Oh, salt. Salt is great. I love salt. I use lots of different kinds of salt. If you have a thing for, Dead Sea salt for blessing, then use that. Lately, I've been using Himalayan sea salt for protection, which makes sense because it's got iron in it. So it's got that kind of like, for us, iron's in charge of Ogun. Even in Nigeria, for the longest time, you would swear on a piece of iron, instead of swearing on the Bible.
Wow.
In court. Yeah. Yeah. I always thought that was fascinating. Like, they don't want Ogun to get them. Which, if you think about it, you don't want a big, nasty piece of metal coming after you. So that makes sense. So, yeah. No. I know. That sounds like Final Destination or something, but...
Yeah, right?
No.
We relate to movies a lot, don't we?
Yeah. I can't help it. I'm a movie person. All right, so salt. And then, I mentioned before that, formula that could be used for a protection bath. So if you're going to be doing any ancestor working, make sure you're protected before you start. Do a protection bath on yourself. Do other things. We're talking about covering your head. Do other things that can protect yourself so you're not open to those energies. I mean, it doesn't matter what African traditional religion you're in. Like, nobody wants to be, whatever, attached or gotten by a negative ancestor dead energy thing, so we need to do whatever we can. Okay, don't invite problems into your home. My godson's so cute. He had a student the other day. He's like, this guy invited Satan in. And I'm like, well, tell him to get out of your house. You don't want somebody who's inviting Satan in every day. Like, what? Like, that's not good. So, yeah, that's my point about that. Just don't invite any of this negativity in. Don't try and have that contacting something that's extremely negative, because you just might get what you wish for,
Right.
Yeah.
Well, don't know you're wishing for, or bring it
or
in.
don't know you're
just
wishing for,
You don't know. Although I will say that I think I have an uncle who passed away who's not the kind of guy that you would bring into polite company. Let's just put it that way. He's not the nicest man in the world. But he actually showed up once since he died to save me literally from like a pit bull attack, which is another whole story.
Nice.
But he showed up to let me know that, and I felt like maybe he was trying to redeem himself in some kind of way. So I think some of those ancestors, they might come through to try to make up for at least something that they might have done, wrong. But if not, by all means, slam the door, throw them out, tell them, to get out. But maybe you might want to just see what they want first, because he did save me. He really did.
That's great.
That's probably the nicest thing he has ever done.
That's great.
I mean, the only.
Yes.
Right?
Well, if he was only going to do one thing, saving me from, it was actually 3 dogs, saving me from these dogs,
Wow.
if that's the only one thing he ever did for me, that's enough. That's cool.
Wow. That's great. Good deal. Well, that's kind of on my list, that you need to build up the good connections with ancestors that you have. And I even think, like, if there's one that's hanging around and it wasn't necessarily the best of people, there still might have been something redeeming about them, whatever. Maybe, Uncle whatever was really good at, I don't know, fixing watches or something, and your watch breaks, hey, like,
Right.
I think that can be a helpful situation,
Right.
Definitely. Yeah. So I think that's, and what's the other thing? Oh, Florida water again. I'm just going to keep saying Florida water because I love that stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. There you go. Florida water.
We like Florida water. That works.
Yeah, that usually works. There was one, I can't remember the name of it, but it was in one of the bottles similar to the Florida water, but it had such an amazing smell that when I used it, I felt cleansed, and Campe or something like that was the name of it. That name kind of recognize or in any way jar a memory with you? And Campe or El something.
No, I don't know what
Actually,
that
it does
is.
ring a bell. I think
I just tried and every time I have the empty bottle, and I gotta find it afterwards. But every time I go to any of the botanicas or anywhere, and even online, I can't seem to find it.
That's weird.
And I'm like, this is so great, but oh well, I'll find it one of these days.
Yeah, I hate that.
I know, right? When you can't find what you've enjoyed at least one time or whatever.
I know. I want to buy 2 of everything. I'm going to be a hoarder.
Yeah, I know, right? I tend to sometimes do that. I do that sometimes.
Okay, I found the flower. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but it is Elecampane flower.
Oh.
Yes, that's it. You name it. That's
Yes,
it.
yes, yes.
It's in one of the bottles, like it's similar to the Florida water bottle.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But it smells so enchanting that I felt when I used it, everywhere in the house just felt like everything was cleansed and I mean, Florida water is great. I just don't have an affinity to that one for some reason.
That's fine.
But that one, that El Campeon, I don't even know what it was for. All I know is that's how I felt. So I said that for me is cleansing.
All right, that's good. I've seen it
Yeah.
used in like road opening baths and stuff like that,
Oh,
like an
there you
Allegua
go.
formula, yeah. So that makes
Okay, yeah,
sense.
you could.
It gives you what you
Okay,
need to
all right,
progress and
sounds
move
good.
forward. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds good. I wanted to ask you about your spiritual warfare spell.
Oh,
I would love to hear
okay.
about what. I love when I ask you a question and you get this giggle thing of going on. I'm like, uh-oh. Either it was,
I
so
told you.
simple, or it was so silly, or it was.
Right? Oh, well, I feel like I was sitting on the subway and I'm watching this woman and she's got one of these like, there's so much, I want to be a Christian printer because there's so much Christian press and Christian
Oh my
stuff that they
God!
put out all
Yes.
over the place, like, and they're always reading everything and,
Oh my.
it's like, okay, okay,
I
so
Right.
know
I'm,
enough somehow,
I know. It
and they
is,
seem
though.
to
It's a
be
lot.
everywhere.
It's a lot. It's a lot, and I don't know. I mean, I have a lot of clients that say it's not working for them. I'm not, but if it's working for a lot of people, then that's great. I think that's wonderful. But I see a lot of people praying and not a lot of people really seeming to be very happy. So that makes me sad, but
Oh.
whatever. But yeah, so I was looking at her and she's reading this thing about say these and then Jesus will help you and then
I'm rolling my
which,
eyes. I don't mean to do that.
I know.
no, I can roll my eyes too. I had another client the other day who she got a reading. They told her to put a rat on a stick. I was like, what?
What? Wait,
Okay.
They
what?
did. They told her
That's
to
okay.
put.
That a rat on a stick is an actual dish in China, so it's okay. She can go to
Well,
China and she'll
that's
be
what
fine.
I said. I was like, they they have it, I think, in Chinatown, maybe. But that was supposed to be her protection spell, that she was supposed to put a rat on there was more to it, but that was the big part of whatever. So I don't know, I got scared. But anyway, so I wanted to come up with something else that was simpler for her than a rat on a stick spell. So basically, take two candles, take a white candle and a black candle. If you want, you could use a reverse candle, which,
Mhm.
a black and white reverse candle, which people have seen where there's like, it's got two arrows on it up and down, and it's like half black and half white. So you could use that instead. Sage oil, which I'll say this, be careful, don't use sage oil if you're pregnant or lactating or anything like that. But if you like sage, go for it. Grains of paradise, which is interesting because this is another ingredient that you find, it's in Haitian voodoo for like justice and protection magic. It's in ancestor stuff in Lukumi Santeria. Like there's a lot of different things, the grains of paradise. And I like them a lot. It's a culinary thing. People put it in their food and eat it. It's kind of spicy. It's a pepper. So that I think is good. Anything that you have that sort of spicy, there's a lot of protection formulas with black pepper. So this, I think, you don't want to burn too much black pepper because that'll mess you up inside.
Right.
So this is like my
Right.
two little teeny pinches of grains of paradise, I think, is my healthy pepper compromise for this spell. Frankincense oil, which I love, especially this time of year, any kind of, frankincense going on, very protective. And then holy water and Florida water. And you use the waters to sort of wash down the outside of the candles and wash down your threshold and the windows, similar to like I just mentioned, and then take out any remaining water from the washing and dump that onto the earth, and then you light the candles. And for me, a lot of what I think people can do, especially if they're not initiated, has to do with their own positive visualizations. So as the candles are burning, imagine all the negativity being removed, and nature hates a vacuum, so you've got to
Right.
fill it with something. So fill it with all those positive thoughts and good things. for yourself. You know, I mentioned Aida Wedo before. I did a ritual once. This ritual had like, oh my gosh, it was insane. It had like 500 people at it. And basically, I wanted people to imagine things better than they could possibly imagine. Don't imagine yourself getting a new car. Imagine yourself getting the best car you could ever think of.
Yes,
And it's
absolutely.
all paid off. And it was like, and people got so scared, they couldn't do it. They got too scared to imagine things being really, really good. And I was like, this is what's wrong with people. They can't even imagine, you know, owning a big giant house with 20 rooms. They can only imagine, like, maybe fixing the broken toilet in the back of the house.
Right.
I'm not
Right.
doing that.
It's true, though. This is the best some people are going to be. If you can't even imagine your life being much, much better, then it's not going to get there. So, you know, when you start thinking about positive things coming into your life, think about the best things you can possibly imagine. Filling that
Yeah.
void, filling that, you know, white light, that energy, bringing it to you, you know, and then let them burn down, put it out if you have to go, and light it again until it's all gone.
Yeah, absolutely.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. The other thing I wanted to ask you about is how do you craft the herbal Grigree bags for focus, energy, and concentration? I saw that on your blog. I'd love to hear about that.
Well, the focus, energy, and concentration, like I said, those were all three of those were, you know, picked by my god kids. And basically, I have a god kid that's going back to school, and he's having a lot of hard time concentrating on things and not letting things get distracted to him. So he really wanted to do a Grigree mix that was for him, that would bring him that focus and concentration. So a lot of what went into that was different things for him that he had, you know, and this was pretty much all, like I said, some people are allergic to some things, some people love some things. So what it was he had done a reading, and we do readings usually with, I mean, doing a card reading with 100 different herbs would be kind of hard. So usually what we do is do readings with either a pendulum or dowsing rods, and through that process we can come to figuring out exactly what needed to go into the bag. So he figured out exactly what needed to go in the bag for him, and that's what went in there, and we charged it up, and there we go. Yeah.
Very, very cool. Well, you know, one of the things I wanted to also discuss with you is on one of your blogs, you talked about tarot card reversals. And that's kind of a bone of contention with me because the original tarot cards, it wasn't intended for them. They didn't have reverse cards. There's enough bad cards in the deck that you don't have to reverse them. So I don't reverse the cards, and I was interested, you know, listening to also what you had to say. So I'm not going to ruin it. I'll let you talk about what you discussed in that. Talk about that some more.
I'm with you 100%. Like, I totally don't read reversals. I think that I'm not really sure why you would either. You know, I mean, there's got to be. I had somebody really rude. You know how people are online sometimes. Somebody had done a response to a post that I had done. And what she said was basically, it was like kind of mocking all psychic readers. She was an atheist blogger. She's mocking all of us. And she's just like, well, you know, what I really want to know about psychic readers is how they choose what the meaning is out of 100 different meanings, you know. And I'm like, well, actually, that's a good question. But you don't have to be, like, the whole rest of it was mixed up with, like, do you wear a funny hat? Like, she wasn't very nice. But anyway. So basically, you know, for me, there are 100 different readings. And when I started to read, like, I memorized those 100 different readings, you know. And when I'm doing a reading for myself or somebody else, one really becomes clear. There's one certain path that that's what's screaming at me, literally, and not. This blogger also put in a clip of Adele screaming, like, what comes to you? The voices? Ah! And I was like, so, I mean, it was funny. I could see where she gets a lot of traffic, but, like, I'm kind of a little insulted. But anyway, so, but no, there really is, okay, I need to say this. And sometimes, you know, it's the wackiest, wildest thing that you really probably think you shouldn't say, you know, like I've said things to people about, you know, is this a situation about, you know, sex abuse or extreme violence or things that, like, I don't want to go down there, but that's what the path that I'm seeing with these cards is telling me is the situation, you know, and everybody, when it happens, is usually very thankful and also really surprised because, you know, no, there isn't necessarily a sex abuse card or something like that, but there is a way that cards interrelate to each other. And for me, it's not about reversals. It was never about reversals. There's a lot of really crappy cards that you don't want to get. A lot of the swords I don't want to get at all. Like under any circumstance, you know, that's unpleasant. And then even if you have a bunch of good cards, if you have a bunch, you know, if that's next to 9 of swords and the 3 of swords and, like, you know, whatever, the tower, you know, I wouldn't think your good cards were even going to be that good. So I believe in pretty much, you know, what Crowley would have said was ill-dignified, that, you know, things can get worse even if they're good. You know, like you could be having a great day. You stand next to a homeless person vomiting on the bus. Your great day is going to be that much, you know, lessened.
Yeah, it's pretty shot after that.
You know, I try and still have a good day, but, you know, it's not as good as it was if that had not happened to me and I hadn't had to progress in this way. You know, so that's how I feel about reversals. But I'm really glad you said that, because, like, a lot of people when I wrote that were very insulted and like, I read reversals. You know.
You know
happy for them.
That's okay. If that's their way of reading it, there's nothing wrong with that. I just can't do it. That doesn't make sense to me. Maybe it's from a past life. I don't know. But I just can't do it. But that doesn't mean, you know, that other people who do it, that doesn't mean their readings are wrong. It's just we all have our own way. You know, it's okay.
That's kind of like telling someone that however they're practicing their particular spiritual life is wrong or right. I mean, who are we to say that? That's their personal spiritual right. I mean,
see, we don't say that. They're the ones that come to us. I have no problem with how you read your card. You do
exactly. You know.
But they're the ones that are saying, "Oh no, you did it all wrong."
Yeah, because I'll be honest, and I do this because, and this is to not freak people out. I use the tarot as a means to make them think that's how I'm reading. But I learned with Laurie Cabot, and the way it ended up being was, I'm not really reading the cards. I'm just telling them what I see and what I feel. But I'm not going to do that to them and make them feel uncomfortable. So I use the cards as a means. And yes, I get some things from the cards. But really, I'm not reading the cards. So then if I'm not really reading the cards, how could the reverse have something to do with what I'm reading?
Right.
So to me, again, that's just me. Everybody's different.
Everyone, and it's
so for anyone to judge that, I think, like you said, it's not just disrespectful, but it's absolutely stupid on their their part. You know what I mean? On their part.
Yeah.
There is nothing.
It's not just necessarily stupid, but ignorant, actually.
If there's one thing that just really just bites me is when you're doing a reading for someone who thinks they know better than you what the cards are actually saying. Oh no, that's not what it means. You know, it means this, and I have to explain to them. You know, I don't follow a book. I read cards intuitively. Books have never made any sense to me. I've tried. It doesn't make sense. I might as well read Chinese. So I do it intuitively by what, you know, the picture says to me, what the feeling is. I can look at a card for 5 different people. It has 5 different meanings to me for each of those people. But they're like, oh, no, that's not what that means. I studied this. And I'm like, well, here, take the cards. And then you go ahead and do your own spread and your own reading, and then you can still pay me when you're done. Because obviously that's what we're doing. You want to do your reading and pay me. I'm down with that. You want to do your own reading and pay me? Let's rock.
That's great.
Go right ahead, and then you can pay me when you're done. Because I just find that so frustrating.
Right. As a matter of fact, you said the right things, because even when I teach people about the tarot, I tell them, forget all the things that they know about the books, because they start telling me what the book says.
Yes.
Forget that. Just forget the book ever been read. How about this? You just sit here and read what the card is giving to you.
Yes.
And after a while, which is in less than a year, they're telling me they're reading just about anything without even reading the cards, similar to how I read.
Absolutely.
So that means it's all by rote and feel, and it works out more accurate than what, and when they look at the book, some of it is not anywhere near what they're getting, and the person is saying how accurate it is.
Absolutely.
So
same
who's
way.
right and who's wrong. You know, no one can tell you that. You know,
Absolutely.
so it's what works for me.
It is. It's what works. And I do, I do the same thing with my students. I'm going to teach you how to read any cards, because our way, you can read any card. It doesn't matter what kind of cards it is, you can read them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, so I really appreciated that article, because that is a lot of people like, well, I've got to follow the rules and what the book says exactly.
Yeah.
No, you don't. If anything, you're limiting yourself by doing that. But that, again, is my opinion. If you want to do it your way, then by all means, rock on, do your reversals. We're not making fun of you. We're just saying that our way is not wrong either. There is no way.
So I'm surprised that they came at you like that in any negative fashion.
I've had several people come at me like that.
Yeah, yeah.
They tell me what the cards mean. I was like, okay.
Now,
I like that. I like that, though. That you said that you can tell me whatever the cards say that you want it to say, but you're still paying me.
Hey, you're still going to pay me, so you want to go ahead and spread, rock on. Here's the cards. And they will. They'll pick up the cards and do their own things. Like, no problem. Rock on. Just pay me.
That's beautiful. No, I like that. I've had people accuse me of arranging the cards before they got there. Because
wow.
I knew
my goodness.
And I knew that this is what they wanted to hear. So,
oh, my gosh.
Yeah. No, I don't know what they think I'm doing. I'm like, oh, jeez. Yeah, all right.
Oh, wow. I've never been accused of that one. But my goodness, how?
Wow.
Oh, I know that she's a magician, like on the level of, what's his name? That big guy. You know, the magician that could pick cards. I forgot his name. Houdini. Is it Houdini? Not Houdini. Not Houdini. What's the new one? David Copperfield?
David Blaine.
David Copperfield? Is that him?
No, David Blaine. He's the
okay, whoever the David is. Whatever. They must think you're a magician. That type.
Yes.
More power to you, girl. More power to you.
But
at least, you handle it in the best way that you can when they accuse you of things and you move on. There's not much you can really do there.
Absolutely. And that's all you can do. But I have to tell you, God, and we have only got a couple of minutes left, but I have to tell you, I so enjoyed having you as a guest. And you know what? Especially since you do things for the Crone, Goddess Star and I do
I was thinking of that.
Crone show, so maybe you'd like to come back for one of those shows.
That sounds great. So funny. I was thinking about that when she mentioned the Crone, when she mentioned Maman Brigitte and Nana Buku and the Crone, and I was just like, we do a Crone show.
If you would come back to us for one of those shows, that would be awesome.
That's such a pleasure. It really has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you. It's been wonderful. I had such a good time. Yay.
It's usually fun.
All right, we're going to go ahead then and close out our circle since we've only got like 2 minutes left. Hail and farewell, our lords and ladies of the elements and the directions. We thank you so much for your kind service and return your energy back to its source, and blessed be, and thank you for your attendance. And for everybody in the chat room, we so appreciate. Let me see if there's any.
Yeah, look at that.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you guys so much.
Oh, Tamara has a.
They are funny in the chat room.
They are very funny in the chat room.
Goddess Tamara says, I should have said, I knew you were a narcissist before you came in, so just sit and listen. I'll try that next time, Goddess Tamara. Beautiful. Of course, I don't expect to have the person sit there. They'll get up and walk out, but that's okay. It's all good.
Yeah.
It's all good. So thank you so much, Goddess Lilith. You were just completely awesome. We so enjoyed having you. I really look forward to having you come back for our Sexy Sage and Crone show.
Yay!
And to everybody else out there in YouTube land, merry meet, merry part,
and merry meet again. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone. We will see you next week. Bye-bye.